So, what if pretty much everything you've been taught about money is just wrong? Today, we're diving into a book that really shook things up for millions of people, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it all starts with this choice between two very, very different father figures. All right, I want you to imagine you're a 9-year-old kid and you have two dads. Now, one is your actual father, super smart, a total academic. The other is your best friend's dad, more of a street smart entrepreneur. They both love you, they both want to give you advice, but man, their ideas about money and life could not be more opposite. This was the actual world Robert Kiyosaki grew up in. See, on one hand, you've got Poor Dad, who was Kiyosaki's real father, an incredibly brilliant man with a PhD, but somehow he was always just one paycheck away from a total financial mess. Then, on the other hand, there's Rich Dad, his friend's father. This guy was an 8th grade dropout who ended up becoming one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. So the difference wasn't about their IQ, it was all about their mindset. Poor Dad would say things that, a lot of us hear growing up. That classic line, the love of money is the root of all evil. He kind of saw wealth as this thing that corrupts people, something you should be weary of, not something you should try to understand. And that belief, well, it kept him stuck in this cycle of just constant financial worry. But Rich Dad? Whoa, he saw it from the complete opposite angle. He believed the lack of money was the real evil. That's what causes stress, that's what causes fear and desperation. For him, money wasn't this evil, corrupting force. Nope, it was a tool, a really powerful tool for creating freedom and opportunity in your life. Just think about how often you hear someone say, I can't afford it. For Poor Dad, that was it. Conversation over. But Rich Dad taught Kiyosaki to ask a totally different question. How can I afford it? See the difference? One phrase just shuts your brain down. The other one, it kicks it into high gear and forces you to get creative and find solutions. So, how did Rich Dad even teach these wild lessons? Well, it definitely wasn't in a classroom with a textbook. It was through this real-world experiment that was designed to completely shatter everything Kiyosaki thought he knew about work and money. So, Rich Dad's first move was to hire the boys to work for basically nothing, 10 cents an hour. He wanted them to feel that sting of being underpaid, to get frustrated, to get angry. And right when they were about to quit, he does something that seems insane. He cuts their pay to zero. He was pushing them to their breaking point, forcing them to stop thinking about a paycheck and start looking for opportunities hidden right in front of them. This whole crazy exercise was his way of teaching them about what he called the rat race. And that's the trap that so many of us fall into. It's this endless cycle that's powered by two really strong emotions, fear and greed. The fear of not having enough money keeps us chained to jobs we don't even like. And then greed, or the desire for a bigger house or a newer car, keeps us spending every single dime we make. And this led to Rich Dad's first and most important lesson of all. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich, they have their money work for them. It's such a simple idea, but it's a huge shift in perspective that honestly changes the entire game. Okay, so how in the world do you make your money work for you? According to Rich Dad, it all boils down to understanding one incredibly simple but really profound rule. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. That's it. Think about a rental property that brings in cash every month, or stocks that pay you dividends. These are things that are making you money even when you're sleeping. And on the flip side, a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. This is your mortgage, your car payment, your credit card debt. You get the idea. These are the things that keep you tethered to that 9 to 5, month after month. And this super simple distinction, it's the absolute key to understanding the difference between the rich and the middle class. The rich focus all their energy on buying assets that generate even more income, which creates this amazing upward spiral of wealth. The middle class, though, often buys liabilities that they think are assets, and they just end up digging themselves into a deeper and deeper financial hole. Now, this brings us to a question that might make some of you a little uncomfortable. Based on this rule, is your house an asset or is it a liability? For most people, their home is actually their biggest expense, not their biggest asset. I mean, yeah, it gives you shelter and security, but it's constantly taking money out of your pocket. You've got property taxes, maintenance, all of it. Rich Dad's point isn't that you shouldn't own a home, but that you have to be honest about its real financial impact. So now that these two 9-year-old kids are armed with this powerful new understanding of assets and liabilities, what did they do? Well, it all started with a really clever idea that was born right out of that frustration from working for free. So while they were working for nothing at the convenience store, they noticed something. The owner would take old comic books, rip the covers off, and then just throw them away. To literally everyone else, this was just a pile of trash, but to Kiyosaki and his friend, this was a golden opportunity. They took that trash and turned it into an actual, thriving business, a comic book library for all the kids in the neighborhood. For just 10 cents, you could come in and read as many comics as you wanted. They even hired a librarian. Before long, they were pulling in an average of $9.50 a week, which was a fortune for a kid back then. But here's the most important part. They weren't trading their time for that money. They had built their very first asset, and it was working for them. That little comic book library was just the beginning of their journey to financial freedom. Rich Dad taught them to always be on the lookout for new assets they could add to their portfolio. The goal was to create all these different streams of income that would one day, finally, set them free from that rat race. You know, when you really get down to it, the story of Rich Dad and Poor Dad is about way more than just money. It's about the choices we all have to make, the paths we decide to follow, and the kind of legacy we want to leave behind. It's a choice that always makes me think of that famous Robert Frost poem, right? The Two Roads in the Woods. Kiyosaki chose the road less traveled. It was harder, it was way more uncertain, but that's the one that ultimately led him to a life of true financial freedom. So if there's one thing to take away from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's this. True wealth isn't about how much money you make. It's about how much money you keep and what you do with it. It's all about building that asset column that will take care of you and your family for generations. So as you go about your day, I want you to ask yourself this one simple question. Are you following the path of Poor Dad, just working harder and harder for your money? Or are you starting to embrace the mindset of Rich Dad and finding ways to make your money work hard for you? The choice, as it always is yours.